We always do a little bit about the ostrich farm because we're down to the last few days, potentially, and I'll have more to say about that in a minute. But I want to show this.
Our 291 days, herd immunity ostriches that deserve the right to live, and the world is watching. It's been a strong tagline and has become very popular, and I'm grateful for that because I believe that every day that goes on, the more people across the world are watching. 39 days since the ostriches have been in the care of Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and 5 days until we have the Supreme Court decision of the fate of all of this life sitting on our farm. So let's go for a walk. Here we are, headed down the laneway. So a few things. The feeding. They have moved a few of those big square alfalfa bales in and are feeding some of that out. We are going to continue to find out exactly how and where and monitor how much grain is going out, as we still witness today them standing on the back of the feed truck just dumping it out of the feed truck. 31st, yesterday, was the last day of my mom and I's undertakings from getting arrested, just against my mom and I, but our undertakings, which means our ability to go across in the quarantine area, is now we can go across.
Okay. November 6th, Thursday. Supreme Court will announce at 9:45 Eastern Time its decision on whether to allow an appeal to be heard from Universal Ostrich Farms. That's not a lot of time. And of course, tomorrow there's a budget. One of the biggest days, probably the biggest day in the House of Commons calendar. Having worked on the Hill for many years, I've covered many, many budgets, not just as a journalist, but as a Hill staffer. And I tell you that all the time. Yes, I was a Hill staffer. And yes, I towed the line politically. That's why I'm an independent journalist today. I don't toe the line. I will criticize whomever I think needs to be criticized. But right now, Katie needs to do a little bit more than walking around the farm talking about how things have gone for the past few weeks. She needs to fight harder in terms of saying the farm has issued a notice to the RCMP that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency has been illegally occupying their farm since September 24th. And they need to get the hell off of their farm. That has to be day in, day out. If they really want some change in the next 48, 72 hours, they need to do that. They also need to appeal directly to the minister about how this is going to be politically catastrophic, because that's the only language politicians understand. They don't care about unity. They don't care about goodwill. They don't care about what's right and wrong. They don't care who's morally right. All they care is who's politically right. And that's what Katie and her mom have to do. I've reached out to Karen Esperson to have her on the show Thursday. Hopefully, Katie will be there too. I don't know. To talk about the decision. Now, what's going to happen on Thursday morning? Supreme Court could say we're not hearing the appeal. We'll get to that, what that means in a second or a minute. The Supreme Court said we are going to hear the appeal. That will give the farm untold months to continue to build goodwill, to move public opinion, if in fact it needs to be moved much further, but to continue to get the word out about how their research has been fantastic, how these birds are healthy and have no reason to cull them, how the CFIA has time and time again refused to test them, it refuses to count them, how this farm has provided research that is not just valuable for ostriches and birds, but for humankind. This farm has done invaluable research. CFIA knows that. They put an update out on Halloween. They put an update out saying the research is really not that important. That's absolute BS. That's rubbish. CFIA knows that, and CFIA probably wants that research. This is one of the motivators for this hellish government agency. As I said, I've been pointing out what they've been up to in the wee small hours of the morning, what they could be up to in terms of why are they bringing in these weird machines? Why are people hearing blending noises? Why are people hearing grinding noises? CFIA responded to that by simply saying, we are not liquefying birds. If they really thought that was an outrageous accusation, they would not even have responded to it. The fact they responded to that accusation tells me that there must be some substance to it. And I believe that. I believe that. So we'll see what happens. They have 72 hours. Now, if the CFIA is allowed to slaughter this herd of ostriches and by the Supreme Court on Thursday, how soon do you think that's going to happen? Well, if an election is imminent, the CFIA, I predict, will try to execute that order immediately because they don't want this to become a political embarrassment for the Liberal Carney government during the election campaign. What can the farm do? Legally, very nothing. Very, very little. Well, absolutely nothing, actually, legally. They've expired. They would have expired their last possible option. But they could exercise passive resistance. Easy for me to say, I'm not at the farm. And yes, people would get arrested. But I think it would raise the profile of this fight, of the injustice of what this farm has experienced, of the idiocy of what the CFIA is imposing, what the government is imposing on this farm, of the absolute disgrace of a government that has no respect for private property rights, no time for farmers, and no comprehension of what real freedom and democracy is in this country. That would give them the opportunity to get those messages home even further, to drive those messages home, because believe me, this government does not respect private property. It is in the the hands of globalists. It pursues a globalist agenda. And the irony of it all is that the globalist regulations they're following are not even consistent with what the CFIA is doing. The CFIA has gone 2 or 3 steps farther than even the World Organization for Animal Health and the World Health Organization is dictating. They're going farther. The United States is going in the other direction. Our chief trading partner is going the other direction. It's not engaging in mass slaughter of animals. It's stopped doing that. It's not engaged in the so-called stamping out policy. It stopped doing that. It is exercising a rational response to any sort of outbreak of disease. They're using quarantines. If animals develop herd immunity, that's okay. But Canada is hell-bent on this destructive policy, and Mark Carney is hell-bent. So time is precious right now. I don't know what the verdict is going to be on Thursday morning. I suspect, given this Supreme Court, the probability is not good. It's going to be a positive one for the farm, but I don't know. Let's wait and see. And let's wait and see how the farm responds. What should be the response? Because I predict if the Supreme Court says no, this is going to galvanize Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Freedom-loving Canadians who will come to that farm and say, this is our stand for freedom in this country. This is our stand against totalitarian Marxist Carney government. This will be a huge motivator for Canadians who love freedom. And who knows, we could be in the midst of an election campaign at the same time. And where do you think that energy could go? To a politician who says, I embrace what's happening at this farm, not from the perspective of the CFIA, but from the perspective of the Universal Ostrich Farms. I embrace this fight for freedom. I embrace this fight for justice. I embrace what has been going on here to stop the government's dissolution of private property rights, which I know aren't in the Constitution. They damn well better get there. And I reject the government's war on agriculture, war on farmers, and war on private property and livestock and livelihood. That's what this battle has been about since day one. And this is why I've been fighting. I've not pretended that I have been objective about this story any more than I was objective about the Freedom Convoy. I thought it was a moral choice to make. I supported the underdog in both cases. I knew they were going up against the full power of the state, and the state would fight back, and the state would try to crush this opposition. And they did it to the Freedom Convoy with the Emergencies Act. They're doing it right now by intimidation and terrorism and harassment by the full force of the federal government. And this, my friends, has to stop. And that's why I don't pretend to be objective about this story. I think it is another example of Canada's freedom being taken away by a ravenous government that doesn't give a damn about your rights or mine. We'll revisit this again tomorrow. Budget day tomorrow. Tell me in your comments if you think I should do a live stream on the budget. I don't know. Every year, is it worth it? Is it worthwhile? Do you really want? Is it really necessary to hear my commentary about the budget? Because you're all feeling the same thing. I know. But this could be a budget that is polarizing and that really affects the popularity of the Marxist Carney government. So we'll all be watching one way or the other, whether I live stream it or don't live stream it. We need to watch this budget tomorrow because it could lead to another federal election. And my friends, that's the only way we're going to stop the surveillance and censorship bills in front of Parliament, because they will pass with the NDP support, because the NDP no longer respects or loves freedom of speech. It despises freedom of speech just as much as Mark Carney and the Liberal caucus does. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching today, folks. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.